Have you ever stopped to wonder what really holds a community together? What makes it tick? Well, today we're going to dive into an ancient text that gives us a surprisingly modern, super practical blueprint for one of our biggest challenges, building a society that actually works for everyone.
I mean, it's the big question, right? It's something every society, every small group, heck, every family has to figure out. How do we weave together a social fabric that's strong, that's respectful, and that genuinely takes care of its people, especially the most vulnerable among us?
Now, you might hear 2,000-year-old letter and think, what could that possibly have to say to me? But trust me, the book of 1 Timothy chapter 5 is anything but outdated. It lays out this incredibly detailed and down-to-earth guide for creating a healthy social vibe, an ethos that, as we're about to see, is more relevant than ever. So let's get into it. When you first read this chapter, it seems to be talking about really specific groups, widows and elders. But if you look just under the surface, the principles are totally universal. It's really about how any community can build a culture of care and responsibility that covers everyone, from the youngest to the oldest. And what's so fascinating is where this whole thing starts. It's not some new, complicated idea. Nope. It's a direct spin-off of one of the 10 Commandments. That basic idea of honoring your parents, that becomes the template for how you treat everybody in the community. It all starts in the home. And this is where the text just jumps off the page and into our lives today. See, back then, a widow with no family was in a terrible position, totally destitute, so the community had to create a support system. Well, today, we face a really similar challenge with how we care for our elderly. As Dr. Robert Yarbrough points out, a lot of modern societies just outsource that job to the state. It creates what he calls a cultural amnesia about our responsibilities to our older generations. This ancient model gives us a completely different vision, one that's all about personal responsibility, not just institutional programs. Okay, so if the family is the starting block, how does that ripple out into the wider community? Well, the text shows us that before you can even think about systems of care, you've got to build a solid culture of respect. And it gives a really clear framework for how everyone should relate to each other. And look, this isn't just a list of be nice suggestions. As you can see here, it's a blueprint for creating a very specific culture, a shared spirit. When you treat each other like family, you basically head off generational conflict at the pass. Younger people aren't just brushed aside, and older people aren't spoken to harshly. It creates this baseline of dignity for absolutely everyone. Now, that line about treating younger women as sisters with all purity is so important. Dr. Yarbrough makes it clear this isn't about creating awkward rules or, physical distance. Not at all. It's about your internal attitude, your heart. It's about seeing other people as valued family members, not as objects. And when you have that, you can have really healthy, powerful relationships between men and women that aren't exploitative. All right, so with that foundation of respect firmly in place, the chapter gets down to brass tacks. It tackles the big practical problem: how do you build a safety net for your most vulnerable members, in this case widows, in a way that's both compassionate and responsible? And the blueprint for this is incredibly clear. It's basically a two-step system. The first line of defense is always the family. Children and grandkids are told that taking care of their own isn't just a nice thing to do, it's a fundamental part of living out their faith. It's only when a widow is what the text calls really in need, meaning she has zero family to help her, that the wider community steps in. It's a model that puts personal relationships way ahead of impersonal systems. And they do not mince words about this. This isn't just a gentle suggestion. The language used here is incredibly strong to really drive the point home. In fact, Dr. Yarbrough shares this amazing personal story about how thinking on this exact verse convinced him and his wife to pack up and move 350 miles just to care for his aging mom. It just shows you how a call to action like this can literally change the entire course of your life. Now, for those widows who did need the community's support, it wasn't just an automatic handout. There was a formal list, and it had some pretty specific qualifications. This tells us it was a really structured system. It was designed to support women who had a proven history of serving the community themselves, women known for their good deeds, their hospitality, and for raising their children well. The advice for younger widows, though, was different and really practical for the time. Instead of being put on a long-term support list, they were encouraged to get remarried, manage a home, and have kids. The whole goal was to channel their energy in a productive way into building new families and to keep them from the kind of idleness that could lead to gossip, which, as we know, can just tear a community apart. Okay, so you've got your foundation of respect, and a system for care, the final piece of this community blueprint is leadership. I mean, how do you make sure your leaders are both honored for their work, but also held accountable? That's a question every single organization still struggles with today.
And this is where it gets really smart. The model here is this perfect balancing act. On the one hand, leaders who do a great job deserve double honor, which even includes financial support. It shows their work is valued. But on the other hand, that honor comes with some serious scrutiny. You can't just throw around accusations. They have to be backed up by witnesses to prevent slander. But, and this is a big but, if a leader is proven to have messed up, the correction is public. This two-sided approach protects against both the abuse of power and the cheapening of authority. It's brilliant.
And the stakes for this are as high as they get. This command for leaders to be impartial, to not play favorites, it's not just some good advice. It's a solemn charge given in the sight of God. This principle is the absolute bedrock of trust in a community. When leaders can resist that temptation to play favorites, the whole system stays fair and credible. It stops that cynicism that can just rot a group from the inside out.
So, after walking through all these very specific instructions from 2,000 years ago, what's the bottom line? What are the big, timeless principles we can pull out and actually apply to our own communities today?
Well, the key takeaways are pretty powerful. First, strong communities are built on a bedrock of mutual respect. Second, taking care of the vulnerable starts with the family. It's their first responsibility. Third, any community safety net has to be smart and structured. And fourth, good leadership needs that delicate dance between honor and accountability. But maybe the biggest one is this. A healthy society isn't built on grand theories. It's built on small, practical, everyday actions.
In the end, as Dr. Yarbrough puts it so well, this chapter isn't just some dry, abstract theology. It's this beautiful picture of how big ideas actually work themselves out in one of the most real, practical parts of being human, getting older, needing care, and giving care.
And that really leaves us with a big question to chew on. In our modern world, which is so often about individualism and letting institutions handle things, what can we really learn from this ancient blueprint? Which of these principles, family responsibility, mutual respect, accountable leadership, could we start using right now to strengthen the fabric of our own communities?